I feel like there is this drastic disconnect between the experience that Last of Us TV show viewers are having versus video game players that are watching The Last of Us. It's like a night and day. The television show format is just different. You only have 7 episodes, and so you have to pick which beats can I provide in this show that will still keep the essence of the story of the game intact. And I feel like there is an inability for people to just wait. If we'll still get from point A to point B, even if there are some minor changes that they have to make.
Crazy Stupid Podcast.
Thank you so much for tuning in. If this is your first time watching, we'd love it if you could hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the bell so that you are aware of when we post things.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Crazy Stupid Podcast. My name is Esther.
And I'm Adrian.
And we're here to talk about The Last of Us Season 2, Episode 5. Another episode that is functioning to, I think, transition us into whatever Ellie's about to do. I don't know. Something reckless.
This was a really good episode because this is a very pivotal moment in the video game where this is the first time we're seeing Ellie release whatever revenge or anger that's been sort of building up since the moment. And it almost feels kind of shot for shot in how that's done. Like the redlining, the back and forth, the reveal that Ellie is immune, and then Nora's kind of like, wait, it's you, like you're the one, like all of it. I still feel like we're getting really good quality television, building everything up so that honestly, next season, it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, like honestly.
How many episodes do we have left? Like 3? It's 8 episodes?
I think they're only doing 7.
Oh my word.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is definitely like the Dune 1. You know how like Dune 1 was like very good, but it's so much better once you have Dune 2?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
That's probably a good way to describe it.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about it. We opened up with the wolves, and we learn about the spores being in the air.
Yeah.
Very bad. And I feel like the show keeps taking us back to this idea of like sacrifice and what are you and are you not willing to give up for other people, for a cause that's greater than yourself. Like, what are you willing to sacrifice for something outside of you? So in the post-credit thing, Neil Druckmann makes a really good point that this is kind of a callback to the end of season 1, where we had Joel, who was not willing to make the same sacrifice that this woman made in this episode, wherein she realized, I have to do this to my own son to save all of the rest of us. And so I will do that. Joel was in almost the same predicament. I know there's arguments people make about, we don't know for sure whether they would have been able to save humanity, but it was still a very similar decision. And we see that he was not willing to make that sacrifice. And then I think as this episode goes on, I think we get into even more people who are in similar situations about like, what am I willing to put at risk? What am I willing to not put at risk for something outside of myself that I think the show just keeps coming back to over and over again?
This, I feel like, is a change for the TV show that actually makes the story better. In the video games, you're introduced to the spores like relatively early in the game. This is not something that is like revealed to you later on. Them revealing that the spores or even the stalker infected or almost like an evolution of the cordyceps kind of makes Joel's decision have even more of a consequence.
Yeah.
Because at this rate, this is a foe that humanity just can't outlast.
Yeah.
Not to mention there are other versions of infected. This isn't a spoiler, but other versions of infected that are terrifying that haven't even been revealed yet.
What more can we do?
And if they are presenting these things as like an evolutionary process of the cordyceps, this makes Joel's decision even have way more impact because the trajectory and the ripple effect of the decision he made makes this even worse, in my opinion. There is a scenario where maybe all of this could have been avoided, as opposed to in the game where it was all of this has sort of just been existing in their world for quite some time. And there is no reveal of like new versions of the virus starting to exist in their world, you know?
I do want to talk about Dina because we got a little bit in the scene where Ellie goes into the big auditorium, the theater, and she sees the guitars as she starts playing.
Yeah.
The first line, if I ever were to lose you, and then she just stops. And I feel like part of it is it's hard because she's thinking about Joel, who she did lose.
Yeah.
I also think that part of it is that she's thinking about Dina. And I think she knows that she is putting Dina in a position where she could likely be lost, and she stops and she cannot finish the song. I think if Dina had given her the choice of like, I can go with you or you can go ahead without me and I'll stay back, I think Ellie would have just been like, yeah, go back.
Yeah.
I think though that between the choice of we do this together or we don't do it at all, I don't think Ellie can give up this idea of revenge.
Yeah.
No matter what. I think to her, that is more important than like life itself. Again, I think that goes back to that idea of sacrifice. What are you willing to give up? Because she could make the decision to give up this idea of avenging Joel and go back with Dina to keep her safe, to keep the baby safe. That's an option. And we see even later when they almost die and Jesse has to come and save them, and when they're running away from the sacrifice and stuff, and Jesse's like, yeah, we link up with Tommy and we go home. And even then Ellie's like, what are you talking about? No, we don't. It's something that she just cannot give up no matter what it costs, even if it costs her Dina. And I think she knows it definitely could. And I don't know anything about the game. I know we've had some people in the comments be like, it's like borderline spoilers. I genuinely don't know what's going to happen. This is just my prediction based off what we've kind of seen. I really don't think Dina's going to make it. I don't think so. I do think like we're learning that in the same way that Joel saving Ellie was less about Ellie and more about himself, I think you say the same thing about what Ellie's doing now. I do not think that getting back at Abby is truly about avenging Joel. I think it's about the fact that Ellie is riddled with guilt because she did not forgive Joel. And we saw in the early episodes of the season, she never intended for the dynamics of their relationship to stay that way. Yeah. She always kept saying like, we'll always be Joel and Ellie. Yes. And so she had always intended eventually for them to work things out, but they didn't have the opportunity to. So I think she feels extremely guilty about that. And that compounds with her survival's guilt. Because again, it's another person who is gone. She didn't get to make things right with them. And now she is still here. And I think that this whole thing about trying to get revenge is way less about trying to right a wrong. And it's more about trying to make herself feel better, trying to feel less guilty. Maybe I can feel less guilty about the way that I left things with Joel if I can avenge him in his death. You're saying this is about somebody else, but it's not. And it's clear in your actions because you're risking all of these other people and yourself in order to do it.
I also think just hearing the things that you're saying, I don't even know if it's just about guilt. I honestly feel like Abby, with the decision that she made, is just like the penultimate moment of a theme that has existed in Ellie's life, which is there have been significant moments where she did not have agency in certain decisions that she's had. Whether it's obviously like the cure itself, like she didn't ask for this, which she's said multiple times in season 1. Marlene didn't give her really any agency in the procedure. Joel doesn't give her any agency on like if she wanted to go through with it or not. And then honestly, you could make the case that Abby kind of took away any chance Ellie had of choosing when she was willing to forgive Joel. The kind of anger that I think we're seeing from Abby is not just about Joel, but I think there is also some misdirected anger at it as well, of like all of this throughout
Ellie.
Yes. The bulk of Ellie's life so far has been the inability to make choices on her own terms and on a timeline that she wants. And I think that makes that last scene a little bit make more sense, where it's like, you know what Joel did and you are still this angry because it's not just about him.
Yeah, it's not.
It's about what she has been losing throughout her entire life so far. And yeah, I think that makes it way more complex than just I want a tick for tat kind of revenge story, you know.
In the game, when you see Ellie like reach for, is it a pipe also in the game too?
Yeah.
and just like going on Nora. Is that like a very shocking
A little
moment?
bit, yeah. You even see, sometimes in like TV shows, they do that thing where like the camera is on the person that's being brutalized, and you'll see like quote unquote blood splatter on the camera screen itself, like on the TV screen. It was kind of like that, and then like the screen gets darker, and you're just kind of sitting there like,
oh yeah.
There's even moments, and this is a spoiler, but there's even moments in the game where either you're Abby or Ellie, and you have to click the button to inflict violence on someone else. And
That doesn't deserve it.
well, whether they deserve it or not is up for interpretation. But at that time, when you have to do it, you're so exhausted because you're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
I think this moment is like a testament to Bella Ramsey's portrayal of Ellie, because I was not surprised at all. I was not surprised at all. In fact, it wasn't until afterwards when I listened to other people talk about it that I realized, oh, this is the first time that we have actually seen Ellie like this, because it has always felt very apparent to me that this was in her the entire time. To me personally, like this didn't shock me, because I feel like Bella Ramsey has done a very good job of showing that there has always been this part of Ellie that's kind of been kept at bay through the influences of these people, right? Like she keeps being repeatedly saved, literally saved, but also like emotionally saved by all of these other caring figures who step in to look out for her. Obviously, Joel being the biggest one, but we see in Jackson that there are other people a part of that too. There's Tommy, there's Dina, there's even Jesse, there's Maria, all these people that like keep that part of her at bay. That recklessness that she has, that tendency to go without thinking, like all of that is a part of what we see in this moment.
The hothead, the temper.
Yes. And so for me, I wasn't surprised to see Ellie do this. I was like, yeah, no, this actually makes a lot of sense for the person that she is, especially in this isolated place where not only is no one else there, but she knows no one else can go there. She's the only person that could be there in that moment and live to tell about it on the planet, as far as we know.
Yeah.
So there's this like ability for her to act out in ways that she cannot act out anywhere else, because she knows no one else can be here. And I think that's part of that kind of that sense of almost arrogance that we see from her when Nora realizes that she's not being affected by the spores.
She's like, yep.
Yeah. But, and I was trying to think through, and I think part of it is this knowing that like, I can do this here because I'm the only person who can be here. And nobody is here to observe me, and nobody is here to hold me back from this.
I feel like there is this drastic disconnect between the experience that Last of Us TV show viewers are having versus video game players that are watching The Last of Us. It's like a night and day. It is even more apparent when you look at like the Rotten Tomatoes score of like the critics versus like the audience score. Polarizing. There's sort of two things that I kind of want to point to this. The pacing and beat of the video game is not going to work for a television. Normally, in certain instances, I can have a bit of empathy for the original idea of a story, whether it's like a book or a film or something of that nature that's being adapted. Like in House of the Dragon, I understand the frustration that book readers have. Obviously, books right there, like I read it. So like when certain characters like omitted, that changes a bit, right? That's significant. That is not the same thing as adapting story to the screen. There are going to be changes that have to be made. The television show format is just different. You only have 7 episodes, and so you have to pick which beats can I provide in this show that will still keep the essence of the story of the game intact. You won't be able to have everything. You also need to think about the fact that some of the character growth is not just the cut scenes in the video game. Some of it is us playing it. We don't have that luxury in a 7-episode television show. It's just not there. Another perfect example, what happens with Tommy's character? There's all this uproar about like Tommy was supposed to leave Jackson. He was supposed to be in Seattle and they ruined his character. Just because it happened 2 episodes later is not that big of a deal, y'all. It really isn't. And the fact that Tommy was a little bit more reluctant in joining up is also not that big of a deal, which I'll say to that in 2 reasons. One, Tommy was reluctant in the video game, and some of y'all forget that. Them choosing to see Tommy go on what I would say a character arc of perhaps reluctancy to revenge is a much more compelling story in the television format. That's just what it is. And I feel like there is an inability for people to just wait and see if we'll still get from point A to point B, even if there are some minor changes that they have to make. It is almost imperative to see Tommy go on like a bit of a revenge tour because it's an important beat of the game. And so far, there have not been any important beats that have been missing, y'all. I'm sorry, you're being way too purist here. And that can just be a little frustrating because it's like, guys, can we just wait? Just wait. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think people need to be more comfortable like withholding their criticism until you see how things play out.
Right.
Even if you want to voice like, I have some concerns, that's fair.
Yeah.
But like, I'm still willing to see what they do. Because we don't know how the story will be told until the story is told.
It's also, Tommy was not a playable character. He's a side person that I don't know if you've seen me play the game, but like there's a main character and there's kind of like an NPC character that's kind of walking
like
me
runs around with you.
Yes. Yeah. The story arc that we're getting in the video game to give Tommy more character, that's going to work in a video game. That's not going to work for television. In order to make Tommy a compelling character, you have to give him a story arc. Just slow down. Like I remember we held off our concerns about where they were taking Allison's character in House of the Dragon until the finale because we were like, let's just wait and see.
And then everybody turned out to be right.
It did turn out to be right, but it was like, hold on. Because on the flip side of that, I remember in Obi-Wan, there were instances that they were being way too loose with a certain character. Like it looked like a character was unalived. I don't want to get into the details of it, but
it's like it would have messed up canon.
Yes, essentially. And then it got to the point where they had to send some certain characters on like a late night and be like, guys, we respect the canon, which is just like, yo, time out. Just take a breather.
Just wait, guys. Just wait
a second.
I think I am having to give myself that reminder in terms of the handling of the Seraphites, man.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, but that's another example, though. You provide criticism while recognizing. Let's have some nuance to it. Let's give some patience. I'm willing to see how they progress in their telling of their story and how much more time we spend with them. Yeah. The initial introduction does seem problematic to me, and I am starting to understand why some players of the game, especially people who are pro-Palestine or Palestinian themselves, might take issue with it. I do want to say I have seen a couple of things online, not a lot, but I've seen like a couple videos and then like a lot of comments agreeing under those videos of people that I do think are oversimplifying the problems with it. Like I've seen some people who are like, he literally wrote this about how much he hated Palestinians. I was like, wait. No. Not quite that. Yeah.
You can still criticize it. And I also think it's very valid for some people to be like, now that I know the allegory, I'm not really interested in the franchise. Sure. I think that's very fair. I think we can be honest, though. And still take issue with it. Be honest, because it's not that simple of him being like, he just wanted to make a show about how much he hated people in Palestine, because that's not true. He wanted to make a show criticizing the feelings of hatred that he was raised to feel towards people that he did not understand.
Yeah.
Now, his there's clearly limits to the way that he can tell the story and the level of honesty he can bring to it because of his upbringing and because of biases that I think it's fair to say he has.
Yeah. But I would also say, just to be a little bit of like a lore nerd that I think adds just maybe a little bit more nuance to it, you get a lot of backstory, and you can go on like Last of Us Wiki to learn a lot about the WLF or Wolves. They have a terrible history. They do some terrible things. They start off with this new idea to like remove themselves from what they felt like was a fascist movement. And they go through a lot of dark choices, like isolationism starts to kick in. Xenophobia starts to kick in. They start to not connect with other neighbors. They start to demand that all of their members sort of swear like a high level of loyalty to the WLF. And there's all of this other lore about like you sometimes you can get like pieces of artifacts that you can read, and it just kind of builds up the story of like other characters that we'll never get to see or read or hear from. And you'll read letters to people that compare the WLF to Fedra. You can make an argument that he's trying to give, in whatever capability that he has, whatever with the limitations, a very strong criticism to if he's making an allegory to Israel, because there's a lot that the WLF does that is terrible. So it's a lot more complicated. I'm not giving him a pass. I'm just saying
there's more to it.
Yeah.
I do think though, like in response to that is like, put it in the show. Put it in the show, put it in the game. Like, you know, if people have to search for extra information to come to those conclusions, I don't think that's
it doesn't land the same.
Yeah, I don't think that's a fair telling.
Yeah, like if I don't go and read those letters or pick up the clues and artifacts, I might miss that backstory.
Yeah, and that would be crucial for this to actually be honest.
Sure.
I also think my major issue right now that again, I actually don't think that there's any exploration of the Seraphites that can correct this, which is why I'm like kind of concerned about it. But I do think it's problematic that what we're seeing is a military group, the WLF, fighting against a religious group and a religious ideology. I think that is a problematic imbalance in the story.
Yeah.
It makes it so that the thing that is wrong about them and the reason why they do the things that they do stems from their belief system. I think that's I think that reveals a lot about Neil Druckmann and the way that he is still viewing what's happening there. Because I think the WLF is a very clear representation of the IDF. I would be curious to know how much he actually attaches it to Israel as a whole and how much he separates those two things. But the Seraphites seem like a representation, not just of Palestinians, not a representation, but they seem like a parallel, not just to Palestinians, but to Muslims. I think that the representation of the Seraphites is something that can be helped by what you're describing, right? I do think that just inherently there is a problem with like the Seraphites are obviously meant to appear to us as a more othered group, just based off of their norms. They're more unfamiliar to your average viewer and your average player. And that's a problem in and of itself that is not remedied no matter how much you explore them, I think. But yes, I think there is a level of humanization that can occur if and when we get to spend more time with individual characters and within this culture. But the baseline issue of this group represents an ideology and this group represents a military group cannot be fixed.
Sure.
That just is what it is. Yeah. And he embedded that in the game and in the show, and it's not good.
Yeah. Anyways, those are our thoughts for this episode. We love to know what you all think. Let us know in the comment sections below. And with that, we will see you all next time. Take care, everyone. Peace.